Let's just dive right into this documentary explainer, because we are about to completely shatter that peaceful, romanticized image you probably have of history's most famous artist. Seriously, when you actually look at the primary sources and dive into his private notebooks, the reality plays out a lot more like a psychological thriller. We're going to peel back the layers of a mind that was literally operating on a level humanity wouldn't catch up to for centuries. These rotating blades will cut humans in half like wheat. Now, just let that sink in for a second. These brutal, incredibly chilling words, they belong to the exact same mind that painted the Mona Lisa's serene smile. Crazy, right? This wasn't some ruthless dictator speaking, this was Leonardo da Vinci.
Part 1. The Two Faces of Da Vinci. So we're basically stepping into the mind of a dual persona here, a guy violently torn between creating a beautiful world and designing the exact mechanical tools to burn it to the ground. For historians, it's like a giant puzzle, you know? Was he a hero or was he a villain? Well, to figure that out, we have to look at what actually sparked this dark shift. See, at age 24, Da Vinci faced this massive public disgrace in Florence over accusations of homosexuality. The societal shame just completely broke him. He literally locked himself away in a room for 4 years. And the crazy thing is, when he finally emerged from that darkness, he wasn't just a painter anymore. He was a man obsessed with power, survival, and warfare.
By 1482, Florence had pretty much become a cage for him. He's out of money, totally desperate to regain his dignity, so he writes a letter to Duke Ludovico Sforza of Milan. But here's the kicker. He doesn't pitch himself as an artist. Instead, he pivots completely. He literally says, "I can make weapons. I am a war engineer," offering his services as a creator of automated death. And guess what? The Duke accepted, and Da Vinci plunged right into the dark, cutthroat world of power politics.
Part 2. Architect of War.
Da Vinci was essentially taking the raw physics of destruction and fusing it with the psychology of fear. I mean, his notebooks are filled with these terrifying automated killing machines. We are talking about a building-sized crossbow, the Great Arbalest, designed purely for psychological terror to win battles before a single arrow was even fired. He drafted a 33-barreled gun with rotating rows. It's an early machine gun concept because he knew speed kills, right? And he knew it 300 years before the Gatling gun was a thing. He designed a scythed chariot with horse-driven rotating blades meant to just mow humans down, plus an iron tank with turtle shell armor and 360-degree fire capability. Just totally automated warfare. And as if all that destruction wasn't enough, he engineered a fully functional, gear-driven mechanical lion robot for the Duke. 400 years before the word robotics was even invented. No way, right?
But amidst all these blueprints, which by the way would later include satellite view military cities for the incredibly ruthless Cesare Borgia, his notebooks also reveal something genuinely heartbreaking. He writes, "Tell me, have I done a single good thing? I waste my time." It's just deep, deep psychological torment. He was actually displaying symptoms that today we totally recognize as severe ADHD. He battled crippling self-doubt, a constant inability to finish projects, and kept writing these dark confessions that he was just wasting his life and achieving absolutely nothing.
Part 3. Conquering the Skies.
So, to escape all this earthly frustration and the blood-soaked world of warlords he was trapped in, Da Vinci turned his eyes to the sky. He became utterly determined to conquer a domain that humans wouldn't even master for another 4 centuries. Now, at first, he made the exact same mistake everyone else made. He tried to build an ornithopter, a machine that flapped its wings to mimic birds. Obviously, it failed. But instead of throwing in the towel, he pivoted. He shifted from just copying biology to actually cracking the mathematical code of aerodynamics. He realized that a bird's curved wing geometry cuts the air, creating pressure differences to generate lift. Basically, Da Vinci understood Bernoulli's principle of fluid dynamics 300 years before it was officially a thing.
And how did he figure out that rotational motion creates lift? By just watching a twisted screw pull itself out of a piece of wood. His obsessive, hyper-curious mind suddenly realized the sky was just another medium that force could travel through. He figured, hey, if a screw can pull through wood, a rotational blade could pull through the air. And that one profound aha moment led directly to his design for the world's very first helicopter concept.
Part 4. The Anatomy Obsession.
While he was busy mapping fluid dynamics and optics, which, side note, directly fueled the incredible psychological realism of his masterpiece, The Last Supper, his deepest obsession eventually shifted to the ultimate machine, the human body. Think about this. For 1,500 years, the medical world was pretty much stuck in the Dark Ages. They were relying on these flawed animal dissections from a Roman doctor named Galen back in 100 AD, plus the church's myth that the soul just magically ran the body. But teaming up with an anatomy scholar named Marcantonio della Torre around 1507, Da Vinci just bypassed all that dogma. He started illegally slicing into real human corpses in the dead of night, literally peeling back the layers of the human machine by candlelight.
There's this incredible story where one night he watches a 100-year-old man die completely peacefully in a hospital, no pain, just slipping away. Da Vinci was so desperate to know how natural death actually happens that he opened the man's chest, and what he discovered was that the arteries had narrowed, blocking blood from reaching the heart. So standing right there in that dark room, Da Vinci basically discovered and diagnosed arteriosclerosis. He laid the groundwork for modern cardiology centuries before the medical world even had a name for it.
He was completely decoding the body's biomechanics. I mean, where everyone else just saw meat and bone, Da Vinci saw this engineered marvel. He proved the spine wasn't just some straight rod, it was an S-curve, basically a dynamic suspension cable shock absorber system perfectly engineered to fight gravity. He mapped out the muscles as these incredibly complex levers and perfectly placed pulleys and saw the shoulder for what it is, a sophisticated 360-degree ball and socket joint.
But okay, his most insane and honestly brilliant experiment had to do with the heart. To figure out its true shape, he literally injected molten wax into a bull's heart. Once that wax hardened, he stripped all the organic tissue away, and what was left? A perfect 3D cast. He proved once and for all that the heart wasn't some kind of spiritual furnace like the church claimed. It was a precision, physics-driven pump with 4 distinct chambers and one-way valves.
He even went as far as to map how blood travels through those valves. He deduced that blood doesn't just flow in a straight line. It moves in a spiral vortex, like a whirlpool. This huge fluid dynamics discovery explained exactly how the heart's valves close so efficiently without tearing the tissue. And you know what's wild? Modern medical science flat out denied this for 500 years. They only finally confirmed Da Vinci's spiral vortex theory in the 20th century once we had advanced MRI machines.
Part 5. A tragic downfall.
At this point, he and Della Torre were putting together a 200-page medical encyclopedia. If that thing had been published, it would have advanced human health by literally centuries. But then, absolute tragedy struck. A plague hits, and it kills his partner, Della Torre. Later on, down in Rome, Da Vinci kept up his gruesome, highly taboo dissections, even examining human fetuses to map the womb. But some jealous rivals ended up reporting him to the authorities, accusing him of black magic and witchcraft. The Pope was absolutely furious and permanently banned his access to hospitals. Just like that, his lifeblood, his entire pursuit of absolute anatomical truth, was severed in an instant.
Exiled to France and physically broken, the 67-year-old genius suffered a massive, devastating stroke in 1517. It paralyzed his dominant right hand, the very same hand that painted the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. But his hyperactive, desperate mind just wouldn't quit. He literally forced his left hand to keep sketching, to keep questioning, right up to the bitter end.
Part 6. The Misunderstood Genius.
You see, Da Vinci's fatal flaw wasn't a lack of talent or a lack of drive. It was his tragic, isolating cognitive speed. His mind was quite literally 400 years out of sync with his environment. To protect all these revolutionary ideas from a society that would absolutely view them as heresy, he wrote everything in his notebooks backwards using mirrored text. And after his death, a well-meaning assistant just locked those notebooks away. They sat there, hidden in the dark for 259 years. Because his true genius was quite literally locked in a chest, the people of his time just viewed him as a somewhat easily distracted painter who rarely bothered to finish a commission.
He famously said, "I have offended God and mankind in not having worked as I should." So on May 2nd, 1519, the man who mathematically predicted modern flight, mechanized warfare, and human anatomy died consumed by deep, agonizing regret. In his final moments, the absolute greatest mind of the Renaissance genuinely believed he was a total failure who had just wasted his limitless potential.
This haunting reality kind of forces us to reevaluate our own lives, doesn't it? I mean, if the most visionary mind in human history, a guy who single-handedly saw the future and mapped the very code of human existence, died convinced he was a total failure, how should the rest of us measure true success? What does failure actually mean? What we should take away from this magnificent, tormented journey is a stark reminder. Sometimes, the absolute harshest judge we will ever face is the one staring right back at us in the mirror.